So MoistCr1tikal has made a response video to something that people think is involved with me somehow. I don't know what he's responding to here, but I did write a 14-page script explaining why I don't like reactors and I think they're bad people. Whatever he's looking at here isn't that, because basically nothing of what he talks about in this video do I talk about in that script. That is a little bit of an exaggeration, but I'm somewhat at a disadvantage now. Because Charlie has made a response video to an unreleased YouTube video, my best response would be to just make the video, because anyone who watched it would understand all the things that Charlie didn't understand when he might have read the script. I'm not 100% sure. But I don't have time for that. It's a 14-page document, and I am being defamed by this man. MoistCr1tikal knows that his video is going to reach far more people than will ever actually read that document. So he has free reign to misrepresent what's in it to 99.99999% of people. He didn't even have the courtesy to link the document so people could fact check him. He could legitimately just say, well, Dark Viper's out here saying that I fucked the Loch Ness Monster. I didn't fuck the Loch Ness Monster. People are like, wow, this Dark Viper claiming that MoistCr1tikal fucked the Loch Ness Monster? Shameful. He also knows that my video refuting him will also reach one fraction of a percent of people who will watch his video. This is the power that large content creators have to shape a narrative, regardless of how false.
And it really heats up. This gets wild and wacky for the touchdown real quick. There's a whole section in here where he basically compares reactors to sexual abuse criminals and insinuates that they'd be likely to spike your drink at a party, take silence for consent, basically is comparing React content creators to rapists.
This is on page 8 of 14, and as an offhand remark, in brackets, this is Charlie's attempt to poison the well. Hey guys, I'm gonna take this thing entirely out of context to present it as something that it clearly is not, in order to poison you against a 14-page meticulously written document. What the hell, Charlie? I didn't have the highest opinion of you, but what the hell is this? He is so keen to poison you against this 14-page, meticulously argued document that he goes to the length of finding tweets out of context. He doesn't show the context. And it's just like, here's what the document's about. It's 14 pages! Reactors will frequently say they have the right to steal as much of a person's labor as they like until that person says no. If you work 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 weeks, 10 years, it doesn't matter. They have a right to your content. It is only after you find out that your opinion is apparently meant to matter. This is of course analogous to any situation where you ignore consent for your own gain. I did not at any point say reactors are rapists. I said it is analogous to situations where you would ignore consent for your own gain. The idea that it's okay to ask for consent after the fact is obviously a very stupid idea. However, this is one that reactors will constantly say. As for taking silence for consent, that is literally what reactors do. A person has not given you consent to re-upload their content, and you say, well, they haven't said no yet, so I must have consent. To again clarify, if you read them in context, they're clearly analogies that are used to explain two things to make something more clear. That being, the idea of asking for consent after you perform the action is obviously absurd.
In his own document, he admits that he himself was a reactor. He is engaged in a lot of React content himself. So at one point, were you a rapist, Dark Viper?
I of course did not call myself a reactor. In fact, I defined reactor very specifically in the first paragraph, which of course Critical does not show because it would undercut this point massively. We'll see that later on. I was talking about a very specific form of content of which I've never made. I also, quite obviously, didn't refer to reactors as rapists. The common theme in this video is Charlie gonna be like, I'm not gonna show you where he said this, but I swear he said it. And I'm gonna be like, I didn't say that. And that's all the defense I can give myself because it's not in the script. This is generally speaking why you let a person make a video first, Charlie, rather than handpicking parts from a script to be dishonest.
Of course you don't do that anymore and you deleted all the videos, but at one point you did engage in the exact same content that you're coming out so heavily against right now.
In the document, I expressly outline in intricate detail why that is not the case. But even if that was true, all it would do is make me a hypocrite. It wouldn't make anything I say untrue. It does not even for a moment actually attack my arguments that I put forth in the document. It is whataboutism. Charlie has done everything to avoid the actual content of what I talked about. This is an addendum on page 14 that he's talking about first.
It's an outrageous claim, obviously. However, he does make legitimate points in the document. It's overshadowed by this unhinged rant that he goes on.
Keep in mind, he's talking about a bracketed sentence on page 8 of a text document and calling it an unhinged rant. Even if you don't like me, can you grant that he's not being fair?
He made a video correcting something I talked about, which was how much money YouTubers make from short content.
Not only did I correct MoistCr1tikal, but Ludwig also made a video correcting him. And what was really annoying is MoistCr1tikal left that video up. His entire video that I corrected is wrong. As Moist will now admit, but he left it up anyway. 1.3 million people did MoistCr1tikal give false information to, and he did not give two fucks. Did not take the video down, did not submit a retraction, did not give people actual information. No, he, in the original case, made a 10-minute video rambling about stuff that is completely untrue. When shown that it's untrue, didn't give a fuck.
Obviously, I do react content from time to time, 100%. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not trying to bury it in the past and hide it, pretend like I didn't, or try and justify it, because I'm not embarrassed of it.
That's not something to brag about. It is something you should be ashamed of. You have a staggering amount of money, which you could use to pay people to make content for you, but instead you just take it for free from people you don't even ask.
When I react to something, I'm constantly trying to either pause it and add something to it or interject comedy into it. I treat react content like Mystery Science Theater.
That is hilarious, because Mystery Science Theater actually asked for consent for every single movie that they used, and what they watched was like 40 years old! You're watching videos as they're fresh off the presses without asking for consent. You are the furthest thing from Mystery Science Theater that could possibly exist. Mystery Science Theater had like edited sketches and stuff in their content. What is he talking about? And they at least had some idea what the content was beforehand, so they knew whether or not they could make good content out of it.
Now, of course, not every time is going to be a hit, which is why you'll find plenty of videos where I'm reacting to something like The Downfall of Quibi, which comes from a great channel that I really like to watch, and I just got too engrossed in their storytelling and the way they presented it that I didn't add anything to it. So I ended up just kind of watching it with my community.
So not only do I really heavily attack that idea that anyone can transform a 6-month work by pausing it every once in a while and going, I think that's funny. Here's an idea for you, revolutionary concept. How about you watch the video first? And then once you've watched the video, you say, hey, I actually have nothing of interest to add here. I'm not going to make a video out of it. Or you might say, hey, I have something interesting to add. I'm going to take that individual part in the middle where I have something to add and make my own video about it. The script for my video is 14 pages long. It goes into intricate detail why what Moist is saying here is fucking nonsense. If he sincerely believed he had something of value to add to a video, he'd watch it and then make it into a video, putting in the effort, rather than watching it and rolling the dice. Guys, sometimes I do things that are good, and therefore all the times where I don't do something good, it's perfectly fine. This logic doesn't track.
And yeah, I always feel guilty when something like that happens, but that's never the goal.
I question a person's ability to feel guilt after doing something thousands of times and never changing their behavior.
Dark Viper's entire document here is about this belief that every reactor is doing it for financial gain and to fuck small channels. And the logic he uses to make these points is deeply flawed and isn't substantiated by any real evidence. It just feels like he pulls it out of his ass and it's source, trust me, bro.
Guys, I want you to think for a moment. What are the odds that a person writes a 14-page document that can be summarized that simply? Moist is literally misrepresenting all of my work and then saying, look guys, just trust me, that's what it says. What a hypocrite.
He has an understanding of capitalism and the free market, and that's what he's using to base all of these claims on, even though it's not directly applicable to YouTube itself.
So I write a script where I make points to substantiate that point. And Moist says, so he says this thing, and no. What a witty retort, just not showing people what I said or how I can justify that comparison and just saying no. Wow!
I wonder how many small channels are out there shaking their fist right now like, damn you, Pokimane, my channel died because you watched my video on your stream and said nice things about me. I had such a promising career as a YouTuber till you said nice things about my video on stream to your audience of 30,000 concurrent viewers. Now I'm fucking trashed. I'm ruined. And to be fair, that's not the exact point he's making.
You spend the entire first quarter of your video misrepresenting what I said and poisoning the well. Then you specifically say something you know is not true and say, well, to be fair. No, you are not being fair. You are actively misrepresenting the content of the script because you know you can because it isn't a video yet. You know that people won't actually read it. If that wasn't a point I was making, Moist, why did you say it?
Now, to show his point in the actual document, he goes on to describe how effortless it is to make React content, which he is absolutely in the right on. This is an inarguable truth. That's just blasting your ass with facts and logic 100%. He's totally right there. And he's right there again.
This man spends 6 minutes defaming me, poisoning the well, misrepresenting my words. Then when he gets to my actual words, he says, well, he's right.
Look at someone like Sssniperwolf. She's able to do one a day, and she's making, I think, 700 million views a month or something. She is the biggest React channel online, like anywhere on the internet. And what's shocking about Dark Viper's document is she's not listed here by name. He only goes with Twitch streamers, even though Sssniperwolf does the same thing. So I found that to be weird because that would have been another great point here.
But you've read the document. You know why Sssniperwolf's not on there. Keep in mind that reactors are not reviewers, analysts, documentarians, expert critics, or video essayists. They are people who present their first experience of a video as content, doing so with no idea if they have anything of substance to contribute, as they haven't seen the content before. In other words, they present their reaction to something they have not seen, instead of putting actual effort into making something after the fact once they know they have something of value to add. What Sssniperwolf makes is technically after the fact. I expressly desired to limit the scope of what I was talking about in the video, because making it too broad would make it far too long. Discussing the viability of using other people's clips or TikToks which don't make any money is a separate question to the one that I'm addressing in that document. Do I like Sssniperwolf's content? No. Do I think it's better than Charlie sitting on stream watching YouTube videos? Fuck yes. Technically, Sssniperwolf's videos do contain editing and effects and text on screen and shit, and they can remove stuff if they don't think it's very good. Is it probably still exploitative? Hey, maybe I'll make a video on that when it's relevant.
He argues that this flood of React content takes from the finite pool of impressions, so it takes those eyeballs and puts it towards the React content as opposed to going towards the original content that they would have found elsewhere if the React content didn't exist.
I don't argue it, that is just a fact of how these platforms work. Every time a React video appears on someone's page, a different video would have appeared there if that React video didn't exist. Because all impressions are 100% assigned. Every single impression that a React video gets would have gone to someone else who is an original content creator. Reactors can therefore only ever be the middlemen in these platforms, taking impressions from all other original content creators and giving a small amount back to other people. Reactors do not somehow manifest additional impressions. There is no free lunch in this industry. The impressions they give out are a portion of what they steal from other people.
I'm skipping ahead just a bit because this part is also still part of the same umbrella claim. He says, if your content is good, then it will get exposure naturally, and so you don't need reactors. He's absolutely right, of course you don't need reactors, but he says if your content is good, it will naturally get exposure. Okay, based on what? Where's your evidence to support that claim?
A reactor can't make another person's content good. If your content is bad, no amount of reactions will save it. If your content is good, then it will get exposure naturally, and so you don't need reactors. A reactor can't make your career. Only you producing good content can do that. It is therefore amusing when reactors blame the content creators when the magical boost to viewership they are meant to experience never materializes. It is as if, for reactors, it is the content creator being stolen from who is responsible for making good content, specifically for the reactor, and they have failed in their duty. If the degree of benefit, returned stolen exposure a creator gets, is solely dependent on the quality of their content, then shows just how redundant reactors are. This would be the case regardless whether they existed or not, making the reactor just middlemen growing fat and lazy on the labor of others. Admittedly, you'd have to have seen my other content to understand this, but when I say something is good, I mean in algorithmic sense. It appeals to the market, which I would have used clips to substantiate if you had let me make the video. It is very possible to make high-quality content that no one wants to watch, or to present it very poorly in regards to thumbnails and titles. But I consider thumbnails and titles to be a part of the package. Good content is that in which can be picked up by the algorithm. But it is the rest of this that is really important. As I point out, if you are making bad content, it doesn't matter if people react to it, it will still be bad content. If you are doing something wrong to not get picked up in the algorithm, even if a reactor looks at your content and you might get 10 more views, you will still be fucked in the long term because you haven't solved any of the problems that's preventing you from growing successful. Success on YouTube is more than someone saying, hey everyone, look at that guy. And that is the point this paragraph and what came before it was meant to establish. Whether or not a reactor looks at your content is completely irrelevant to whether you're doing the right things to succeed long term on YouTube.
There are millions upon millions of channels, literally millions, that have made high-quality productions over the last decade that went nowhere, fell flat on their face. And it had nothing to do with XQC watching my mom picks my next boyfriend for me or anything.
Yes, it does, which is why I spent 14 pages establishing, which you have just completely glossed over. Every React video steals impressions away from original content. Every impression ever given to a React video would have gone to someone else if that React video didn't exist. Therefore, logically, original content creators would have gotten more impressions if not for React content. As impressions are related to success, therefore, there would be more successful original content creators if React content didn't exist. Logically, attack a premise. I hope this gets to a point where you actually talk about the arguments in the document. Because right now, all I'm doing is just badly summarizing my own document.
How can you guarantee that by making high-quality productions, you're naturally going to blow up on YouTube?
If someone was to look in the document where I said high-quality productions will always get exposure, I'd love to see it, because I don't remember writing that. And the reason for that is I didn't actually write that. Charlie defined high-quality productions as good content, not me. Something can be really high quality and fucking terrible, both in terms of watchability and in terms of its viability in the algorithm.
But you have no way of proving if that React content wasn't there, those eyeballs would go to that original content. Because it's the internet, it's YouTube, there's other places they could go to get entertainment.
I chose my words so carefully in that script. I didn't specifically just talk about YouTube. I talked about the online creator marketplace. Logically, because all impressions are 100% assigned, therefore, if React videos didn't exist, those impressions would have to go somewhere. Therefore, original content would get more impressions. That does not mean all impressions would be clicked, but obviously, as impressions are correlated with higher levels of success, original content would get more views, and there'd be more successful original content creators. But more importantly, I didn't discriminate. If a person doesn't see something they want to watch on YouTube and then go to TikTok instead and give that person a view, that's the same thing to me. If a Reactors video in their impressions on YouTube would steal that person away from watching TikTok as they would have otherwise, they have stolen a view from that TikTok person.
Let's say all of a sudden all of React content is gone. The people that watch the React content might just go watch fucking Netflix, might just go on Twitch and watch some gaming streams or something. There's no guarantee that now that the React content's gone, those eyeballs turn towards the small YouTubers. You can't prove that.
Nowhere in this document do I use small creators anywhere. Anywhere! The impressions logically would go to other people. If a person uses React content on Twitch to keep people from going to YouTube, that is the same thing. I'm not talking about YouTube specifically, Twitch specifically, TikTok specifically, Instagram specifically, the entire online creator marketplace. If you use React content on Twitch to keep people on that platform, when otherwise they would have gone, oh, well, I guess there's nothing really interesting here. I'm going to go watch some TikTokers. I'm going to go watch some YouTubers. Then you have stolen from them too. Imagine a Twitch streamer who does high octane content, very good original content. And then like, oh man, well, I've finished the content I can make for today. I've got no other ideas. I'm tired. I need to go to sleep or have a shower or something. He goes, no, wait, I can play other people's YouTube videos to keep my audience here. So he turns on some YouTube videos. If he hadn't done that, had he, as he should have, just turned off his stream, all those viewers would have gone somewhere else. Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, doesn't matter. But by using other people's content, you can keep your viewers there in your form of content aggregation. Reactors use React content to keep themselves online longer, to keep people on their channels longer. They use stolen content to keep people on their platform. They act as content aggregators to keep people with them, not finding other people. This is all meticulously detailed in that document.
So the claim is completely baseless. I know you drew this diagram, but there's no source here. You're just pulling this out of your ass. I would love to know where you got this data from, if you have that available.
For my old viewers, it's the meme. This is a diagram used to explain a point. You're using diagrams to explain a complex idea you have about reality. I think X represents a general concept of rich people, and Y represents a general concept, these are specific things, of poor people. This diagram, no! It describes my points! It describes it! It describes my point of view! This can't prove anything! It doesn't actually represent real life! No one can be this dumb! So I walk up to a guy and I say, hey man, look, your odds of getting laid are not going up if you play more World of Warcraft. And he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm like, here's a diagram for you. So your odds of getting laid, see here, on one axis, go down as you play more World of Warcraft. And they look at this and go, oh, I get it now. So what you're saying is you believe that the amount of World of Warcraft that I play is making my odds of getting laid far less. And I go, yeah. He'd be like, well, I still disagree. I'm like, okay, but at least you understand now. So the diagrams that I used in my document were for this purpose, for you to understand my point of view, not prove it. The arguments for my point of view were in the 14 pages of writing. So these diagrams without context, you probably won't understand. But hopefully if you read the document, you'll be like, oh, I see what Dark Viper is saying now looking at these two documents. It doesn't mean you'll agree with me. It won't prove anything, but you will understand my perspective.
Because in this graph, if the React content that controls the 30% here pulls out, that 30% doesn't automatically get distributed to the rest of the graph. Those eyeballs could just be gone. They could go to a different platform.
Key to understand here is that views are different from impressions. I use my language very carefully, which is why Critical cannot use the words that I use in the document. So here we have your home page. You're getting an impression right now for a React video. These spots will always be full. Always. If React content didn't exist, that impression would go to someone else. You might not click it, you might not get a view, but it is a huge stretch of the imagination to imagine that if all React content is gone, no original content creators would get more views. All those impressions wouldn't necessarily translate into views, but obviously more views would be had. This is because of the causal relationship between getting impressions and getting views. This is not a one-to-one causal relationship, but it's a significant causal relationship. If the React content didn't exist, the impressions here are still the same. If a person moves off YouTube to another platform, that doesn't matter to me because I'm not specifically talking about YouTube. If a person sees this no React content and goes, well, I'm going to go watch TikTok then, and watches a TikToker, if the React video was here, they would have stolen that view from a TikToker. Doesn't make any difference to me. These videos are stolen, re-uploaded content, as I try to establish in the document. What annoys me most about Critical's video is not that he disagrees with me, is that he doesn't even understand what the document said.
There's no way for you to prove that if the React content wasn't there, all of those eyeballs that they are occupying of that finite pool of impressions would be redistributed to the smaller creators. You have no way of proving it. Nobody really does.
Then it is fantastic that not even for a single moment did I come anywhere close to arguing that point in all 14 pages that I wrote.
However, off the top of my head, I can think of multiple examples in times where React content has genuinely helped smaller creators, like blow up their channel. My channel, I'm the perfect example of it. My channel literally got kickstarted because of Ray William Johnson reacting to my QOP video in 2010. Without that happening, I probably wouldn't have this channel right now.
And if Ray William Johnson didn't exist, those tens of millions of impressions that he had would have gone to other content creators. Again, due to the causal relationship between impression and views, other content creators would have gotten more views. Potentially other people would have then been discovered. Potentially their careers would have gone off. As I showed in the diagram and argued in painstaking detail, it isn't my belief that reactors don't give some exposure to other people. It is that they steal far more for themselves than they give back. Absent the reactor, more content creators would be getting more exposure. Obviously, because every impression that went to a reactor's video would have gone to someone else. I'm not saying who that is, doesn't matter to me, but they would have had to go somewhere else.
But I can, however, prove that multiple times channels I've reacted to have been very positive about it and their channel has grown exponentially as a result of it.
Entirely misses the point. Entirely. It's not even in the domain of what I talked about in the script. The argument was not that React content never has benefited anyone ever. It is that absent React content, more people would benefit. That React content has a net loss in terms of exposure to other people because the reactor themselves has to sustain themselves. The reactor is the middleman in the exposure game. The reactor takes a bunch of exposure for themselves, builds up their career, makes millions of dollars, and they give a small fleck of that back to someone else. And that someone else may love that fleck. That fleck may be the greatest fucking thing ever. But absent that reactor, all that exposure would still have gone to other people. Because that's how impressions work. Let's put it in simpler terms. Imagine that a reaction video had 1 million views. Let's say it took 10 million impressions to get those 1 million views. What I'm saying is delete that video. Now, these 10 million impressions would still have to exist. They had to exist for the reactor to get them in the first place. So these 10 million impressions would go to other content creators. Billy making animations, Frankie talking about his grocery list, all these people. And these 10 billion impressions for original content creators is more valuable than whatever tiny amount of exposure that the reactor's giving to the person they're reacting to. Because the reactor has already taken some of the exposure for themselves. Those 10 million impressions will 100% go to other content creators. But only a fraction of the amount of people from that reactor's video will click other content creators because of it. What you're effectively doing is you're synthesizing a bunch of exposure specifically to yourself and then taking a tiny chunk of that and then giving it to someone else. All the other creators that you've taken these 10 million impressions from are now worse off. And you're now way better off, but you're giving a small fleck to someone else. Reaction content will always be a net negative in terms of exposure to other content creators because the reactors have to sustain themselves in their career. Reactors are the middlemen for exposure, and the middlemen take a huge cut. Worse, as Critical already admits, making React content is so fucking easy and takes so little time and so little effort that these reactors can release videos far faster than anyone else. So they can take all these impressions onto themselves far faster, releasing video after video after video, while normal content creators can only release a video every once in a while to try to do the same thing. The reactor will always be able to steal more impressions than an original content creator will be able to get for themselves, because the reactor can make far more content. I use make there very loosely.
The reactors don't watch tiny content creators who can't catch a break. They find videos that are already doing well in the algorithm and are already successful, thus do not need their exposure. Reactors are not seeking out content to give it any sort of boost, seeking out content to bring themselves the maximum amount of profit for the least effort. So I just think this immediately runs against that, since the majority of content I watch and react to is small content like Ordinary Sausage, like Slap Fight Championship. Of course, sprinkled throughout there are some bigger content creators as well as organizations that I just appreciate the work of and think that they're fun. But the majority of it has always been the smaller creators. And nah, of course, not always is that like reacting going to help them. In fact, I would argue that it's pretty rare for it too.
How do you find them, Critical? Through the algorithm. The only reason you know those videos exist is because someone had that video fed to them in the algorithm. And if that creator has the ability to succeed, if they're doing the right things and the algorithm is serving their content, then eventually they will succeed. All you're doing is keeping viewers for yourself as long as possible to prevent them finding other creators themselves. Because why go anywhere else if you're the one-stop shop for content? Every single viewer who's watching you watching YouTube videos would be doing something else. And I would argue the vast majority of them would be watching other content online. Would be potentially being shown impressions of other content creators and go, oh, this is a very interesting channel right here. But because you're using other people's content to keep them there, they will never find those creators. You have collectively denied thousands of people careers because an algorithm has a better chance of serving people content that they want to watch long term than you do watching videos at random. If you didn't exist, making that content, your viewers would still watch other people, would still use social media websites, would still be fed impressions from content creators that they will now never know because of you. You are synthesizing exposure that would go to many and channeling it to yourself and then giving a fleck to someone else. You are a net negative in terms of your viewers finding content creators they enjoy. You have collectively denied them so much content they would love.
It is still against his point. I'm not reacting to things that are just going to bring the maximum amount of profit. That's not what I care about. I've never been a money-driven person.
So Charlie has 2 million followers on Twitter. 2 million followers that he could direct at any time to any YouTube video that he desires. He could tweet out, hey guys, this is an amazing video, check it out. He'd get nothing out of that, of course. The exposure would directly go to that content creator and translate to some amount of views. Let's see how many times he's done it. We're still at 0. We're still at 0 here. We got a lot of pictures of Charlie, of course. No video there. I'm sorry. It's a video. It's a video. It's someone. He's getting exposure to someone. Who could it be? Oh, it's Charlie. Never mind. Whoops. Still no one. Still no one. So we have a platform that Charlie could use to give exposure to whoever the fuck he wants for no benefit to himself, and he doesn't do it at all. There must be exceptions in here somewhere. But he spends dozens of hours re-uploading other people's content to his Twitch stream and his YouTube. He doesn't give people shout-outs on his Twitter where he can't benefit from such shout-outs. Ain't that weird that the only time Charlie will even give a veneer of shouting out YouTube videos is when he personally can benefit from it? Odd.
Calls me an exploiter class is outright disgusting.
Charlie, you make millions of dollars a year. In any other industry, all these people that you're talking about paying in exposure, you'd be paying with hard cash. Some of that money in your bank account, in any other industry, you'd be like, okay, you put a lot of work into this video. Here's 10 grand. That's a very nice video. Here's 5 grand. But instead, you're like, hey man, that's a nice video. I'll pay you in some exposure, right? Money? No. I got to keep that for myself. But exposure, you might get some, maybe. A guy's sitting there for 6 months, putting everything meticulously, perfectly, doing all this research calculations, and MoistCr1tikal walks up and goes, that's a nice little bit of labor you got there, friend. Spent a lot of time on that, did you? Well, this is mine now. So I'm going to put this on my live stream. Thank you guys for the donations, the bits, the views. Don't worry about that, guys. My name's MoistCr1tikal, by the way. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel. I would be going offline right now because I am kind of tired, but I got this guy's video to entertain you guys. And I did say I like that thing at 6 minutes. So I'm going to put that entire video on my YouTube channel and generate maybe 10 grand. What, the original creator wants money? No. He's probably getting something out of it, right? Somewhere? Think about it. I got 10 million impressions using his content, and some of those people probably click through to his channel. Some of them, surely, right? Surely. You're using other people's diligent hard work to make fat stacks of money that you have no desire to give back to anyone else. And due to the nature of what you do, everyone is losing out. As I again established so heavily in that 14-page document.
He says that people only react to content that's doing well in the algorithm and that they were going to be successful on their own.
This is not what I said, and you can repeat it ad nauseum, but it won't make it true.
Dark Viper has a point that he can't possibly prove. There is no way he could accurately, with real evidence, show me that these channels were going to do extremely well without React content.
Not what I said. I said somebody would get those impressions. which is true by how the platform works. It could be technically possible that maybe React content is the only reason why people use TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and just because there's no React content, that some portion of the viewership of these platforms would disappear. They would go play soccer? Just watch Netflix. Fair enough. We'll say 5% gone. The other 95% would still go to other content creators instead of you. Every person who spends time watching your React content would spend time watching something else. Any person who has ever been shown a React video or has clicked that React video and watched it would have been somewhere else in reality doing something else. And my argument is that wherever they're doing is more deserving than the people who spend their time re-uploading other people's videos. They would support other content creators with their views and money. And these people would be more deserving of that support because they make original content rather than re-uploads of other people's videos. 14 pages I spent on this. Charlie has looked at maybe half a paragraph of what I actually said and misrepresented everything else in the document. I am not surprised Charlie does not feel shame for what he does because he doesn't understand what he's doing.
However, I can show you examples, and this is only 2 of them, where React content wasn't dog shit and didn't hurt the channel that was being reacted to.
To use money as an example, it's like if I stole $1 from 1 million people, and then I gave one guy $100. And MoistCr1tikal was like, see? This guy that I gave $100 to wasn't screwed by me. But everyone else was. And remember, Charlie isn't alone in his theft. There are tons of people doing the same sort of thing. Stealing $1 from everyone and giving $100 to someone else. And saying, I'm a good guy, I'm giving that guy $100. But as reactors keep doing this, even the guy you gave $100 to will occasionally lose $1. Over enough time, the more people who do that bargain, taking $1 from everyone, that guy as well will lose his $100. Again, I can't even say Charlie disagrees with me because he doesn't understand the point I'm making.
The creator saw my reaction to it and was really disappointed. They didn't appreciate it, and I totally understood where they're coming from because I didn't really add anything to it. I didn't really react to it, so to them it felt like I was just re-uploading their content on my stream.
Because that's what you're doing. Even when you pause and speak, the amount of effort you're putting in is a tiny, tiny fraction of what the original content creator put in place. Person spends 500 hours making a YouTube video, you spend 15 minutes watching it, and you believe you deserve to profit off that $500 worth of labor? As a multi-millionaire, you don't believe you owe that guy one single fucking dollar? On what basis? Without his labor, you'd have to turn off your stream because you'd have nothing else to watch. You'd have less uploads on your channel. Those people who aren't on your stream would go to other content creators. The people who can no longer watch your React content would watch other content creators, wherever they would be found. You are taking that guy's 500 hours of labor in order to take all these impressions and therefore viewers from every other content creator. If you were to disappear, everyone would be better off. And that is the case actually for any content creator. There'd be less competition in the marketplace. If all content creators disappeared except me, you can better fucking believe my viewership would go up. However, all original content creators have just as much right to be in this space as anyone else. Reactors don't. All reactors do is sit and steal from the original content creators. They siphon exposure via impressions to themselves, keep people on their channels instead of other people's, and they flick a few every once in a while to someone else.
It's never supposed to be piggybacking off of someone else's hard work in order to do nothing for it and make money off it.
Guys, that thing that I do repeatedly, it isn't my goal. Sure, I feel guilty about it quite frequently apparently, but I still do it, but it's not my goal to do that thing. Critical, if you're so concerned about not reacting well enough to videos, how about you watch them off stream and just make videos about them and don't watch them live? Make your own creative take on another person's work. Why the live component? If you admit, even in your view, you sometimes end up abusing other content creators, why keep doing it? It seems by my own definitions, I abuse content creators 7 times today. Well, I'm gonna do it tomorrow as well.
It's just so disingenuous, and Dark Viper, I know you watched my content for a long time.
And I remember the day I stopped. I was watching and I was like, wait a second, this is just React content. And the last video I watched was just him repeating stuff he'd seen on Twitter and with a few dick jokes. Why am I watching this? There has to be better content out there than this. If you read some of the comments under my original community post, many people had the same view. You were once upon a time a decent content creator, but you've become rich and lazy. Like, I'll grant you, you are not as bad as the other 3 people listed, but oh my God, how you have fallen. Or maybe I just grew up. One of the two.
There's still so many things I could point out in this document that are just blatantly wrong, such as this claim at the bottom. They will of course then upload this stolen content to their YouTube channels as well as further maximize profits that would otherwise again go to actual content creators. Hey, can I get a source on that? Can I get a prove that, buddy, please?
Again, assuming people who watch entertainment still want to be entertained, they would have to find entertainment somewhere else. Entertainment costs money, and therefore that money would go to other people. Unless people who watch React content would suddenly just explode if it didn't exist, they would necessarily have to give money to other people. Whether in the form of ad watchers or whatever, other people would get more money.
Each of these creators earns on average $20 million a year on the back of unpaid writers and content creators. Hey, can I get a source on that one as well? Where the fuck is my 20 mil a year? What an outrageous number to pull right from your fucking dick hole there.
What is Charlie trying to insinuate here? Like, oh, I'm not making $20 million. Okay, maybe 7, 8, 10, maybe. But I'm not making 20. Come on now, people. Was the exact number the point there? What a strange thing to quibble over. I'm not making 20 million. I'm only making 10 million. Come on now. Like I said, on average, for those 4 people, XQC is making 3 million just off his subs, not including donations, ads, bits, sponsor deals. His YouTube's making at least 3 times this. I have yet to find a content creator who isn't making at least this, if not twice that. I have not made more than $10 million a year in the entirety of my life. What's your problem? Why do you want to act poor for your audience? The point there was on average. Pokimane has so many revenue sources that I can't even count as high. I have yet to find a content creator where this number isn't at least in the ballpark of what they earn. Usually it's 2 or 3 times this. My CPM is shite. But I talk to a lot of other content creators. I know what other people get in terms of their CPM. I have yet to find someone who isn't making this. You are getting 200 million views a month. And of all the things in the document that you made sure to question, it was how much money you make. Remember the video from MoistCr1tikal that I responded to before? Isn't it funny that he didn't talk about all the content that makes him money? He only wanted to make a video about the content that doesn't make him any money. So important was it to MoistCr1tikal to present himself as a person not making a lot of money? He made that video. Look guys, look at all these videos I'm making that aren't making any money. Oh, it's a crazy world, YouTube. To the point where I was so disgusted that I had to make a response video. And even Ludwig had to make a video responding to it. Because that's disgusting. You are making an insane amount of money a year. An insane amount. I don't care if it's 10 million or 20. The point wasn't the amount, it was the contention that you don't deserve all that money. If you sit on stream reacting to a video that a guy spent 500 hours working on and you've watched it for 10 minutes, the guy who made that video probably deserves that money a little bit more than you. Wouldn't you agree? The amount of effort that went into that content was mainly made by that other dude. But you keep all the money and you pay in exposure.
Another thing I'd like to point out is every time this whole React content debate comes up, the people that take the most offense to it and make the biggest stink about it are the people that aren't having a problem with people reacting to their content.
I went into such intricate detail to explain that everyone suffers from React content, but those who are reacted to suffer the least. It's an idea called a negative externality. To go back to my analogy from before, I'm a guy who's looked around and said, hey Charlie, you probably shouldn't be stealing $1 from like 1 million people. Like, Charlie, you're keeping 999,900 of those dollars. Like, I know you're giving that guy 100, that's great, but how about you just don't steal the dollar from all those millions of people? And Charlie's like, no, fuck you, this is mine. And then he responds, well, you're just complaining because you aren't the guy I'm giving $100 to. Just again, these are analogies to explain ideas. They do not represent numbers that actually exist in real life. MoistCr1tikal isn't actually using magic to steal $1 from everyone. Just to be clear.
It's always a weird dichotomy where the people that are the maddest are the ones that aren't even directly involved in the problem that they're talking about.
Sure, we could use pollution as an example. You've got the people at the top, the polluters, who make fuck tons of money polluting the planet. Then you have the people who work for them who make some of that money as well. Then you have literally everyone else who's like, could you guys like stop polluting the planet? Like, we don't work for you, but we do suffer because of what you're doing. And the second tier is like, why the fuck are you complaining, man? I'm getting a great paycheck here. The people at the top like, look, all these fucking people. They don't even work for us. They don't work for us. They're not our responsibility. Every class except the top is ultimately worse off. The people in the second class who get some benefit are less worse off, but everyone else is the worst off.
The majority of it's always been a really positive relationship between the creator that was reacted to and the person that was reacting to it.
Of course, because in any system, you are much better off ingratiating yourself with the elites than trying to challenge them. This video doesn't benefit me. If I became friends with you, despite your exploitation, I would be in a better position. People who are in positions to exploit the most amount of people are the people you want to be friends with. You do not gain from challenging the powerful. You gain by ingratiating yourself with them. Sure, it will take a fuck ton of unpaid labor that person will then use to enrich themselves, but you'll benefit. You'll get that association. Think of it as an unpaid internship for a very powerful exploitive company. Are you better off having that unpaid internship or challenging that company? The little guy doesn't win there, but I care more about being a good person than being an unpaid intern in Charlie's fucking enterprise.
Even if it's like, hey, that's 70,000 people watching your content on XQC stream instead of yours, well, those 70,000 people may never have found that small channel in the first place, and now maybe some of them do go over there, and he mentions that as like trickle-down Reactonomics or some shit like that. But for a lot of people, that is a net positive thing, where there could have been no one that ever found it in the first place.
Right, so I'll try it even simpler. Let's say we have two different realities here. In this reality, XQC doesn't use other people's labor to keep himself live longer. He has to expend more energy making original content himself, so he can't stream as long. So he goes offline. And so all these viewers are like, oh shit, well, we gotta go find something else to do, and I still want some entertainment. So they go to this content creator, this content creator, this content creator. Oh, I've never seen this content creator before, and some people go there. And so all these viewers will scatter to all these other content creators, right? And this is how things should be. In this reality, XQC can use high quality content that he himself cannot create to keep himself live as long as possible. While normally he'd have to edit for 20 hours, he can just watch a video for 20 minutes, so he stays live far, far longer. And so all these viewers stay here. And because he has more viewers, he's online, other people are finding him too, rather than other content, and he gets bigger and bigger, keeps getting recommended. But some of them might say, oh, that video that XQC is showing, is that an interesting content creator? I can't really tell. Maybe I'm interested, I'm not sure. But some of them, go check that out. So XQC gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger off the stolen content, and a little bit trickles down to everyone else. It's the trickle-down theory of React economics. So all these viewers who came in because XQC was stealing content would, of course, go to other content creators. This guy, this guy, this guy. But because XQC can act as a focal point and capture all these people and give a tiny amount here, it looks like he's doing something great.
But nothing he proves shows that the reaction, like the reactors and their content, are taking eyeballs away from other content creators online that have nothing to do with that space.
We have two realities. People don't go to see a movie, and people do go to see a movie. My claim is if they don't go to see a movie, they will do other things. This is not a claim that needs demonstration. It is true, because those people wouldn't cease to exist. If Spider-Man No Way Home didn't exist, then those people would do other things, some of which will be baseball, Netflix, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch. You can see how that's just obviously true. So we can put that now with React content. If React content didn't exist, then those people would do other things. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. Except in the premise that React content shouldn't exist, everything React content takes is taken from these people. Whoever they are, wherever they are. That is just logically true. Unless Charlie wants to claim that the people who watch React content would literally explode, this has to be true by necessity. Therefore, you can understand if React content didn't exist, literally everything else would benefit. Because people would spend their time doing other things. And accepting my premise that the reactions are exploitive and shouldn't exist, then they are stealing from everything else. This is why I didn't talk about YouTube specifically. I talked about the online creator economy.
Truly disgusting thing to do at the end of it, where he claims that reactors are on the same level as a sexual abuse criminal who would spike someone's drink and whatever other disgusting shit he said, and all reactors are bad people.
My point was, consent matters, and the idea of asking consent after you've already done the thing is clearly not good. That is not how consent works. And I made flippant offhand examples. Like I didn't even say it explicitly. My exact words were at the very end to highlight the absurdity of that position. If you meet a reactor at a party, I suggest covering your glass or outright tell them you don't want them to fuck you, because they seem keen to take a person's silence for consent. Again, harkening back to the idea that it's okay to take another person's content without consent because they have yet to say no. That was the analogy. It was hyperbole to explain the absurdity of that idea of consent. The idea of doing something that you know someone might not be okay with, not asking for consent, and then stopping only when they say no is not how consent works. While reactors dismiss the idea of paying workers for their labor or giving them a say over who can profit from it, they will also attack the idea of informed consent as a concept, stating that they will steal as much of a person's labor as they desire before the person finds out and tells them to stop. In other words, if you feel pressured to not cause a fuss about someone stealing your content, perhaps due to fearing the powerful reactors and their audience will threaten your livelihood with backlash, which I'm experiencing now, or if you're not knowledgeable enough to say no, you don't know another person is out there exploiting your labor, or if you physically can't say no, maybe because a reactor has spiked your drink at a party, a reactor believes they can do whatever they want to you. Consent to reactors means they can do whatever they want to you unless you have explicitly told them no. Going to a party with a reactor must be a scary thing. These are flippant comments to explain the absurdity of that idea of consent. I want MoistCr1tikal to come out and say it is perfectly fine to do something to another person that they may not like. You do not need to ask for consent. And you can do that thing as many times as you want. And then when they say no, then you stop. I want him to come out and say that is what consent is. He won't, of course. Either what you're doing is okay and you do not need consent, or you need consent and you should ask for it first. There's no middle ground. You either need it or you don't. It's not something that only matters after you do what you want to do. I just want to say thank you, Charlie, for not even linking the document, making it so your misrepresentations will be found by the least amount of people. Can you imagine making a response video to a video that doesn't even exist, misrepresenting it for 25 minutes, and then making sure that it is as hard as possible for people to find out that you're misrepresenting it? If you like, I will update my position on Charlie. Charlie is a person who does bad things that he doesn't understand are bad. Maybe he does actually have good intentions, and he does not understand how he's exploiting people. I just find it hard to believe that a person can see another person work 500 hours on a piece of work, take it, give that person no money, and then get yourself 20 grand off it and feel like you don't owe that person anything. Of course, I will applaud Charlie. By coming out ahead of my video, he can undercut it so heavily that it will no longer be taken seriously. The ideas within it will not be looked at with an open mind. Good job using your platform to crush down dissent against your empire of unpaid labor. I am sorry that I personally think that if a person spends a fuck ton of labor on something, that you as a multi-millionaire should give them some money. I know I am screwed because the average person does not understand the complicated dynamics of how these online platforms work. But oddly, it seems Charlie doesn't understand either, which both explains the last video that he made where he was terribly wrong, and this one where he's even more wrong. How can a person have gotten this far in their career and understand so little about the platforms that they use? Understand, this was brief. I didn't spend much time arguing for my position, simply explaining it. The document argues for it. If you feel like you still don't understand my point, or you still disagree with it, read it. The link will be in the description. It annoys me because it was meant to be a draft script for a video that I would eventually make. So obviously I would have expanded upon it, but I guess I don't get that luxury now because Charlie has stolen that from me, just like he steals from everyone else. You may still disagree after that point, but at the very least you'll understand my point, which Charlie clearly does not. Be sure to like and subscribe. Also leave a comment if you have something on your mind. My feed gives them to me from all over my channel. It doesn't matter how old the video is.